Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Welcome to the WTF podcast. My name is Terry Fletcher. So this week 6, we were on a bye with the Steelers, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of material for the WTF. So let's figure out where we're going here. I'm going to start with Monday Night Football because I'm crying in my soup. I lost my one fantasy league by 0.08 points. Yes, 0.8 of a point, not even a point, because of CeeDee Lamb. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I didn't think he got that extra point, but who am I? And then in my other 2 leagues, I was supposed to win, but unfortunately that last pick by Justin Herbert, who I thought was terrible the whole night, he also did not help me because they had the defense for the Cowboys. So yes, it's been a terrible week in fantasy football, but let's move on from that and see what was going on around the league. Well, San Francisco definitely showed that they are human because they are now 5-1. No, there's no undefeated teams at this point. But I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, they could have won by making that last field goal, but their rookie missed. Well, I agree, yes, but one thing that you might have missed if you didn't see the game was that the referees, they were giving penalty calls that were absolutely ridiculous. And you just sit there and go, are you kidding me right now? They called a roughing the passer that wasn't. They called a block that wasn't. And then they called a holding where there was no holding. And you see it on replay, you're like, what are they looking at? Especially when the TV refs are like, yeah, I don't see a holding call there. I don't see anything that looked like it was a problem. So when the refs are deciding outcomes of games, it's just really frustrating, not only for the people watching them, but I'm sure for the players, it's frustrating for the staff only because, you know, games and losses and wins, they have to do with jobs in the NFL. So it was just an interesting game to think that's how it's going to end. Kansas City Chiefs, they definitely flicked the Broncos off their shoulders on Thursday Night Football with more of a defensive effort, if nothing else. But I don't know what Sean Payton's doing. I mean, you know, they defeated Denver 19-18. It wasn't a big thing. They did beat their point spread this time, so everyone was happy about that. But Kansas City defense, you know, they're the ones that are kind of keeping this game. I'm not seeing that Patrick Mahomes is playing his best football yet, so 5-1 may not be sticking for a long time. And the other undefeated team, Philadelphia Eagles, they lost to the Jets, and they lost 2014. And, you know, it was actually a pretty exciting game. I mean, Jalen Hurts was not great. He threw 3 interceptions, which is just crazy. You never see him do that. But the Jets, being the Jets, they actually did a pretty good job with their defense. And they've done a really good job in their secondary as well. So I was very surprised, but the WTF moments there is just basically kicking San Francisco and Philadelphia out of their comfortable spots as undefeated, and now we don't have any undefeated teams. Now, of course, when you look at the Dolphins and you look at all their speed, yes, they're 5-1, and they had a win against Carolina, 42-21. But what happened there? So I have one of the Carolina wide receivers who used to be in Minnesota, and yes, he scored me 20 points. But it's interesting because you look at what's going on in Miami, and you really can't see what they're doing. You just know that if you get the ball to certain players like Tyreek Hill or Mostert, they're just going to score. So I think sometimes the coach gets lucky. And in Mike McDaniel, they basically just say, you know what, he's got a decent team and they know what to do with the ball. Let's hope that other teams follow some of the things they're doing there. And we're talking about the players. And then Buffalo Bills. So they did win against the Giants 14-9, but it was really interesting. The Bills narrative, they had a very close loss to the Giants. I mean, we were holding our breath, and I mean, we watched it right up until the very end, and it was just, I mean, it took the last 4 seconds for that to be finished off. But you know, good. I mean, a win's a win, and we know ugly wins are definitely what the football moments. but nobody could actually do their job against the AFC North like we would like. Cincinnati Bengals went to 3-3. They won against Seattle 17-13. Joe Burrow's second touchdown pass was showing he's got mobility. It doesn't look like his calf is bothering him anymore. Seems like he's know what he's doing. So it's going to be a very tough AFC North, seeing that. Detroit Lions, who knew? I mean, they won at Tampa Bay 26. They're very much of a good defensive team. Their defense was very impressive, I thought, and they totally altered what Tampa Bay was trying to do out there. Jared Goff, he's not doing too bad. I mean, he's doing enough, let's say, and they're winning games. So I like their coach. So I was pretty happy to see what their coach is doing. When the Cowboys win, it just I mentioned Monday Night Football, Chargers 2017 Cowboys. It's just defeating to me. I just don't like them. But it actually was implosion by the Chargers. And basically, game-sealing interception of Justin Herbert, and just shows why he is sailing he's just overrated. He's sailing all kinds of wide-open receiver throws, and they could have won that game with double digits if they really tried, because we all know Dak Prescott is just, but he didn't throw any interceptions. So, unfortunately, that would have been really helpful. The Ravens won in London. So that game, again, was here in California at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday. So was I up for it? Well, I kind of got up at about 7, and I thought, okay, let's put on the coffee. Let's take a look. It was actually an interesting game because it was 24-16, and you could just tell that Tennessee was just terrible. They weren't doing a good job at all until there was, in the third quarter, there was like this drive that you're thinking, oh my gosh. They picked off Lamar Jackson, and he always throws a pick, let's face it. Lamar Jackson fumbled. They had another fumble, and but then they became, again, Tennessee that we all know. And they had to put in their backup quarterback because Ryan Tannehill hurt his ankle, so he had to be taken off. Actually, it was interesting seeing him at the sideline because he was waiting for his cart. So I'm not trying to minimize injuries, but it's just interesting seeing somebody stand there for almost 15 minutes waiting for a cart. So it's kind of like, waiting at the gym in your car for a good parking spot up front. It's just, you have a crutch with you, just go. You have somebody taking you there. And if you can stand that long, it was just interesting. So yeah, Ravens are now 4-2. Jacksonville Jaguars over in Indianapolis, 37-20. Jacksonville was impressive, especially with on their defense, but Travis Etienne and Zach Moss, they definitely did a pretty decent job. They held Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor to 3 or fewer yards per carry. But when you have Gardner Minshew, his passes in the secondary, they just hit him. He got sacked 8 times by the Jaguars. And because the Steelers were out, I had to pick up the Jaguars in one of my fantasy leagues, and they did score me a lot of points. So Jacksonville is definitely holding their own at 4-2 in their division. And then we get into Cleveland. Yeah, they had a win versus San Francisco, 19-17. That definitely was a game where, and like I mentioned before, they said they were everywhere. Defense, as far as Browns defense, was everywhere on Sunday. But they benefited from the refs calling really bad penalties. And did the 49ers, did they have a chance to win it at the end, since, again, there was a 2-point game? Yes, and a rookie field goal kicker missed it. But I look at some of those, that, on what should have been 4th and 10, they call a roughing passer, or I think it was a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and a personal foul, and it was awful. And so now they not only got 15 yards from it, and what should have been 4th and 10 and a punt, but they ended up getting in field goal range, and they ended up getting a first down, which ultimately got them into scoring position, because then they got another freebie on a holding call that wasn't holding. And when you change the trajectory of a game like that, I mean, what the football people? Nobody seems to, coaches and players can't say anything against the refs or they get fined. I can. I'm not going to get fined. We're the replacement refs. These guys, terrible. They actually suck right now. So we need to get something in there. Steelers had a great week. We had a bye. We're 3-2. And we're still second because we have a better record in our division. If anybody was wondering how all these wins in the AFC North was going to affect us, yes, we had a bye. Now we have to go cross country to Los Angeles. And luckily, it's the Rams, who are among the worst offenses in football. But so are the Steelers right now. So it's just in the form of statistics in terms of yards, first downs, net yards per attempt. But we are one of the best turnover generating teams in the NFL. So actually we're second. So improving any of these statistics is possible. We also have Kenny Pickett that's been getting better as he goes. He's only thrown one interception over his last 3 games. And we have our defense healthy. I'm excited for this game. I mean, it's coming to California. The weather will be nice, and I'm ready for this game. And I'm not sold on what the Rams are doing out there. So I guess we can hope. Rams are 3-3. We're 3-2. It's going to be definitely a shootout. So I definitely would be interested in seeing how this is all going to play out, and I'm looking forward to it. And then just lastly, when you're looking at the Raiders, and they were without Jimmy Garoppolo because he had a couple of weeks now. He had a concussion week before last, then he had a back injury. He was pulled out, and they had to put in their backup. It was actually, what's his name? He came from Patriots, and Brian Hoyer. See, I remembered, and he came back and they beat the New England Patriots 21-17. Wasn't the blowout the Patriots are used to, but the fact that they were able to, Mac Jones, let's just face it, he's terrible. But I mean, he's terrible. Mediocrity doesn't even describe him, and so the Raiders are now 3-3. But it's just interesting when you have to tape things together how you end up responding to things. And so I was really happy to see that the Minnesota Vikings got a 19-13 win and over Chicago. Now they don't have Justin Jefferson. He's on IR. So without that major person, you have to, your major wide receiver, you have to really look to Addison. You've got to look to some of the people you're bringing up from the practice squad and go, oh, wow, who can we use now? So the fact that they actually got a win. I know they're 2-4, but Kirk Cousins getting a definite kind of a bad deal out there, and so hopefully it's going to be good for him. Arizona Cardinals, I feel so bad for Josh Dobbs. He's trying so hard. He really is, but he did not have a good game. They did lose to the Rams 26-9, but the Rams are like, oh, we're just coming around and we're so good now. Against Josh Dobbs and the 1-5 Cardinals, come on. Cardinals are 13th NFL in first half points allowed, 30th in second half points allowed. And so, Arizona's struggling with second half adjustments, and they are dealing with a backup to the backup quarterback. So that's not really to see how good or bad they are. So it's interesting. But a lot of 1-5 teams between the Cardinals, the Bears, the Broncos, and the New England Patriots. And there is still a team that has not won a game yet, and that is the Carolina Panthers, who lost to Miami 42-21. And I think there's going to be a fire sale soon. So I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of or coordinators that are going to be out, but it was kind of ugly. But so let's just be positive. Let's wait till we see the Rams this week. I'm excited for that game, and hopefully we'll see some of the WTF moments on an upscale positive level. But that's what we did around the league this week. And everyone, thanks for listening. And I'll talk to you next time on the WTF Steel City Underground podcast.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.